Good morning, everybody. Good morning. We are about to start on chapter 16 of the real estate course. Chapter 16 is the application of mathematics, finance math from chapter 13 and 14. Chapter 15 is legal aspects of the mortgages. It is not a mathematical portion. So chapter 13 and 14 are basics, and now we're going to chapter 16. Chapter 16, what I've done is I've taken this chapter into 4 parts. First part is talking about vendor take-back mortgages. Second part will be assignment of loans. Third part is cost of funds advanced and yield to the lender. And the last part is penalties. Okay, so let's start with part 1. Vendor take-back. What is a vendor take-back? Vendor is another word for seller of the property. Usually when it's difficult for a seller to sell his property, he may provide financing to go along with the sale. So what a vendor take-back means, vendor is also providing the financing. It's usually used when purchasers cannot get conventional financing, and then that's where the vendor acts as the lender. And usually it is going to be at a lower rate than what the market or the bank rate is for that same type of loan. So an example might be a seller says, I will give loan at 5% for the next 25 years. But really the market rate may be 8 or 9% for the same type of loan. So who's benefiting by doing that is the buyer of the property. He is actually buying this property then for lower than the stated price on the contracts. So let's go through with the first example. First example, we have a vendor, seller, her name is Veronica. She wants to sell her house for $500,000. So Bob is the buyer. He comes into this picture and says, I will buy this house. I will give you $100,000 as down payment, and please give me financing of $400,000 from Veronica. So Veronica says, that's fine. I will give you a loan of $400,000 and you give me $100,000 down payment. The catch here is Bob, the buyer, is asking for a loan at a rate of 6.5%, J12 6.5%. Whereas the real of this type of loan from banks, the rate is 8.5%. So what we're going to do is take a look at the first paragraph right here and look at that first. So first thing we do is make a timeline diagram, and we put in the contract rate, 6.5%, J12, and it's 25 years, so 25 years. And next we put in the loan amount, 400,000. Loan amount will be 400,000, and if it's a 25-year amortization period, that means in 25 years, the end owing is 0. Final value is 0. So we're going to look for what would be Bob's payment to Veronica using this timeline diagram. So I'm going to bring in my calculator now. And the calculator is Alt, arrow, and here. Okay, I have my calculator. So I'm using this first paragraph. On an exam, it may not be set up that nicely as a separate paragraph. Sometimes they give you this information first. But what we're doing is we need to know the agreement, the contract between the buyer and the seller. This is between the buyer and the seller. What we're going to do, this part here is imaginary. This is just what is the market value of the loan. Okay, so let's first of all clear the calculator. And I'm going to find the payment. So do we need to convert? No, it is already J12. So J12, 12 goes there, and 6.5 goes here. Okay, and we're done. Interest rate is done. N, 300. This has already been done. PV, 400,000. Loan, remember, loans are positive numbers. PV is a loan. So loan is a money that comes to a person. Or okay, payment we're looking for, FV is 0. There. and we go back and say, what are we looking for? We're looking for payment. So the payment is $2,700.83. Remember, payments are always to the next cents. Doesn't matter how much this is. Now, if this was to the next dollar, then it would be 2701, depending on what it says here. Okay, be very, very careful. So we have now, from this information, first part of the information, we have the payment, and that's what we're looking for. So we have the payment. Now we're going to take a look at this part. This part here, we draw another timeline diagram. And on this timeline diagram, we put in the market rate, which is 8.5%, and we put in the 25-year amortization. Good, perfect. And we put in, from this diagram, we bring in the payment. There. From this diagram, what are we looking from this diagram? We're looking for this number from this diagram. Sometimes on the exam questions, they make it easy for you and they give you this question, they give you this payment. So then you don't have to draw the first diagram. So we draw the diagram, first diagram, we get payment from there, and this we get from the second paragraph, and we're looking for PV now. We're looking for a new PV, and this new PV is the market value of the loan. This new PV that we're going to find is the market value of the loan. So if we go back here, let me go back here for you. First thing we do is take the first part of the paragraph and draw the timeline diagram with the interest rate between the parties and the loan amount, 400,000. We're looking for the payment. We find the payment, and depending on if it's minimum payment, then it's to the next penny. If it's to the next dollar, this would be 2701, and so on. So next, we look at the second paragraph. We're trying to find the market value of the loan and the market value of the offer. We draw another timeline diagram. And on this timeline diagram, we put in the market interest rate, and we put in the time period, which is the same time period. Okay, no term. That means same time period. And from this diagram here, we bring this picture here, we bring the payment, and we're finding the new PV. Let me bring in the calculator now and clear all. Okay, so we clear all. There we go. So first thing is interest rate, 12, market interest rate, 12, J12, and 8.5. Conversion not needed, N, 300. Good. This has been dealt with. PV, we're looking for payment. Payment is from this diagram. There, $2,700. 27.83. Negative payment. Good. And FV is 0. And what are we looking for? We're looking for PV. There it is. 335. 335,000 is the market value of this loan. Okay, so what did this person really buy this house for? Well, so the new PV is 335. So the market value of the loan is called the new PV, which is 335, this number. And the market value of the offer is the new PV, this number, plus the down payment, which was 100,000. Down payment of 100,000. So actually, according to the market, this house is being sold for 435,000 instead of the full 500,000, because Bob is able to get this loan from Veronica at a rate of 6.5, whereas a market value of the rate is 8.5%. So how do we do this kind of question? Let me go back again. I'm going to review this for you. You've got all this information. First thing is you draw the timeline diagram, and in the timeline diagram, we're looking for the payment of the loan that would take place between the seller of the property and the buyer of the property. So from this, we take our calculator, and if this was a J2, we would need 5 steps to convert. This is given as J12, so right away we find the payment. Once we find the payment, then we draw another timeline diagram, and in this timeline diagram, we put in the market rate, interest rate, and the market time period, and we are taking from this diagram the payment, and we're finding a new PV. And we use our calculator again to find the new PV, when you're finding the new PV, you ignore all of this first diagram. Just cross it out. The only thing we needed from this diagram is this number here that comes over here. Okay. Some exam questions, they will just give you the payment. Let's say it had said here that the payment would be $2,700.83 here in this one more sentence, then we wouldn't be doing anything in the first diagram. Okay. So the market value of the loan is your new PV, which is $335, and the market value of the offer is your new PV plus the down payment of $100,000. Great. Let's do another question. This time we're going to have a term. Okay, so same person. Let's say we're talking about the same person, Veronica, and she wants to sell her house. Bob offers to buy it at full price, $100,000 down plus $400 financing. Bob is asking for a loan of $400 from the vendor at 6.5%, 25-year amortization period. But either Veronica or Bob says, okay, everything's okay, but it's going to be a 1-year period. This loan is going to be having a term of 1 year. And we are told in the second sentence, second paragraph, is that the loan of 1-year periods are around 7%, the market rate for these kind of loans. So what do? We take our information from the first diagram here, all this, and we draw a timeline diagram. Interest rate is 6.5, and it's 300 months amortization period, and it has a 1-year term. But you know from your chapter 13 and 14 that 1-year term has nothing to do with the payment. It does not affect how much the payment will be. Okay, but we are also, because it's ending at 1 year, we're also going to find out from this diagram the balance owing after 1 year. How much would be balance outstanding? OSB stands for outstanding balance. 12 means after 12 payments. OSB 12. So let me bring my calculator. Okay, I'm going to clear everything from the calculator. So first thing, J12, 12 goes first, and 6.5. Done. No conversion needed. N is 300. Interest rate's been dealt with. PV is 400,000. And 0 is FV, and the payment came out to be this. So it's to the next penny. So I'm going to override it, and I'm also going to find the OSB 12. Okay, the payment is 2700.83 negative payment. How do I find OSB 12? I go 1 input 12 second amort. And first equal sign gives me principal of the first year, interest in the first year, and the balance after the first year. So the balance is 393. So OSB 12 is 393, and payment would be 2,700. So these are the two things that we needed to find. Sometimes on the exam questions, they will give you both of these things, so then you do not need to do the first timeline diagram. Now we're going to draw another timeline diagram, and in the other timeline diagram, we are only looking for 1 year. We're finishing this loan at 1 year. I know this timeline diagram is sort of off scale. Maybe we should have put 1 year right about here, but that's okay. We're just looking at 1 year. From here to here is 1 year. Okay, so this, and you notice before when there was no term, this was our FV. Okay, now this is your FV final. So this comes here. Okay, this comes here. So from the timeline diagram, let me do that again for you. So all this, we find the payment and the outstanding balance after 1 year. We find these two bits of information. Then we draw a timeline diagram again. And this timeline diagram, we are going to take this information here, bring that, and bring this here. Okay, so bring this information here and bring this over here. So the market rate, we put the market rate, which is 7%. And now the time period is not full from here to here. The time period is from here to here, which is 1 year, which is 12 months. Okay, so N is 12. From this diagram, we bring the payment from the OSB 12. We bring this over here. So now we're going to find the PV we're going to find a new PV, and this is our diagram that we look at. And let me bring my calculator and find that for you. Okay, clear. First thing, interest rate. No conversion needed. J12 and 7% nominal, and N is 12. PV is what we're looking for. Payment 2,700. And FV, be very careful. FV is money owing. It's negative also. 393, 395, 0.59. And it's negative, meaning money owing. There. And what are we looking for? PV. PV is 398. That's 398. So that's the value of the loan if it's only for 1 year. Remember when it was full 25 years, this was around 340,000. So this house now, what's the market value of the loan? 398. What's the market value of the offer? The new PV plus the down payment of 100,000, 498. So what's the house selling for according to the market? 498. Bob is only gaining about 2,000 by doing this, but at least the sale is happening. So I'm going to go through this one more time. First thing we do is draw the timeline diagram between Bob and the seller. So it's a J12 of 6.5 and 25-year amortization. I know it has a 1 year period. The 1 year period does not affect the payment. It will affect the OSB. So two things we need to find, and we can find these. Payment is 2,700. OSB 12 is 393. Sometimes on the calculator it may not say negative on the 393, but you need to put in a negative value as your OSB. Now we're going to draw the timeline diagram, another timeline diagram, and we're only going to look for 1 year. We're going to finish this after 1 year. This loan is going to be over in 1 year. So from this diagram here, we get these two information. We bring that down here, bring that down here, and the interest rate, we bring that over here, and the time period, N is 25 years, but for this diagram, N is only 12. So these two things come, market rate is 7% right here, and it's a 1 year, so N is 12, and payment, we bring that down here, and OSB 12 is our FV, which is negative. So then we find the new PV, and the new PV, let me use a calculator again, clear all, interest rate 12, compounding period 12, 7 nominal rate, N is 12, PV is what we're looking for, payment is 2,700, negative, and OSB 12 is 393, 395, 0.59, and we are looking for PV. There's our PV, 398. Okay, so what have we found out? We have found out the market value of the loan. That's your new PV, 398. Market value of the offer, 398 plus your down payment. On the exam questions, usually they only ask for one of these. Either they'll ask for market value of the loan, or they'll ask for market value of the offer. Okay, another example. Okay, let's say we have same vendor, Veronica, and same Bob, but this time this loan is going to be a 2 year period. 2 year period, okay? So same question, 2 year period. Draw the timeline diagram, put in your interest rate, 6.5%, 25 years, get your payment, and this time we need to find the OSB 24. OSB 24. Let me do this for you. Okay, how do I find these two numbers? Sometimes they'll be given to you, and you don't have to do all this. Then you don't have to draw them. Always draw a timeline diagram. Always draw a timeline diagram. So clear all. So let's do no conversion needed. Let's say this question was a J2 of 6.5. What would we have to do then? We would have to put 2 here and a 6.5, That's step number 1 and step number 2 done. Step number 3 is press the effective, which gives you J1, but we want J12, so 12, that's step number 4, and there's your step number 5. So you would use this then. If this was J2, then you would convert 5 steps and get J12. But we made it a little bit easy. On the exam, they won't make it easy. They most likely will give you a J2 here instead of a J12. So J12 and 6.5. No conversion needed. N is 300. And here, PV. What's PV? We're 400,000. And 0 for FV. And payment 2,700. So we override the payment now with 2,700.83 payment. And now we're looking for OSB 24. So 1 input, 24, second amort. And this is for the first 2 years principal, first 2 years interest, balance after 2 years. Okay, this can also be done this way also. See, let's say we put in the payment. Okay, that's our payment, but we put in 2,700.83. Okay, instead of doing 1 input 24, we can also just do 24. 24 input second amort. This would talk about the 24th payment, principal of the 24th payment, interest of the 24th payment, and balance after 24 payments. Okay, so we could do it both ways, same answer. But notice this doesn't give you a negative here. Okay, you need to know this balance owing, so you need to put a negative for yourself. Then for the second paragraph, you draw another timeline diagram. Now we're talking about 2 years. Okay, so we're just going up to 2 years. This is, let's say it's up to here is 2 years. Okay, so all of this is not applicable, only 2 years. So we get from here the rate. Rate is, okay, the rate, market rate, J12, 7.5. And now the time period is a 2 year. This is a 2 year here. Okay, 24 months. And we are going to bring from this diagram the payment and the OSB 12. The payment and the OSB 12, which is a negative number. Okay, so we're looking for a PV, new PV. New PV is your market value of the loan. So let's bring the calculator, clear everything in the calculator. Conversion not needed, it's J12, so J12, 7.5. Interest rates dealt with, N is 24. And PV we're looking for, so payment 2,700.83, negative payment, FV 386, 348.86. That's negative also. And we're looking for PV, there it is, 392. So that number here that we just found out, 392 is the market value of the loan, and the market value of the offer is new PV plus the down payment. New PV is 392, down payment was 100, so 492. Okay, another example, example number 4. We have a vendor, or the seller of the property, Victor, wants to sell his house for 500. Betty offers to buy the house for 460,000 with 60,000 down payment and vendor supplied mortgage with monthly payments to the next dollar at J2 equals 6.5% with 25-year amortization period and a 3-year term. Okay, so from that information, what we need to do is we need to draw the timeline diagram with the interest rate being J2 equals 6.5 and time period 25 years. We're going to need to convert to J12. So the loan amount even though the loan amount isn't given, sometimes the loan amount isn't given in a question, sometimes the loan is given and the down payment is not given. So we need to figure out if Betty offers 460 with 60 down payment, that means the loan must be 400,000. So even though it wasn't given here, we need to figure it out as to how much the loan would be. So now we bring in the calculator, and what we're going to do is find the payment. And because it has a 3-year term, we're also going to find the OSB 36. So clear the calculator. And first of all, 5 steps to convert J2 6.5. That's step 2, step 3, and step 4, what we want J12. That's step 4, and step 5, we have J12. Good. N is 300. PV is what? 400,000. Payment, we're looking for 0 for final value and payment. Okay, so the payment is to the next dollar. That means it'll be 26.80. So 26.80 negative payment. And we're looking for OSB 36, 1 input, 36 second amort. This will give us the information about the first 36 payments. There's our balance, 378. We can also do OSB 36 by just doing 36 input, second amort. 1, 2, 3. Same answer, 378. So we have our payment and we have our OSB 36. So payment is 2680. OSB 36 is 378. OSB also has a negative, even though the calculator did not show a negative. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this and look at this paragraph and says, find the market value of the loan and the market value of the offer if the interest rate for market interest rate for a 3-year term is J2 equals 7%. So again, we draw the timeline diagram. Now we're only going to look at the first 3 years. From this diagram, we bring the payment and we bring the payment. Payment comes down here and the OSB is going to be our FV. This is where it ends right here. That's called the FV. This is where this ends. FV was 0 in this question. Here, FV is whatever the amount is after 3 years. So from this, we bring in, from this, we draw a timeline diagram. We bring in the market rate, which is 7%, and the time period is 36 months. And from this diagram, we bring in the payment and we bring in the OSB 36, which is your FV. Now it's time to find the new PV, and I bring my calculator and clear J2, so 2, 7 need to be converted, effective 12, done. Conversion's done. N is 36. PV is what we're looking for. Payment is 2680. And FV is 378, 543.28 negative. Now we're looking for PV. There's our PV. So 394. That 394 on the screen is the market value of the loan. So the new PV, 394, is the market value of the loan. And the market value of the offer is the new PV, which is 394, plus the down payment, which is 60,000, so it's 454. Okay, let's do this question one more time. So from the first paragraph full of information, we are finding the payment and the OSB of the term. So let's say we've found that, or let's say we're given those two values. So let's say we were given these two values in this paragraph. Sometimes in the exam questions, these two items are given. So once you have these two, then you draw a new timeline diagram. And in the new timeline diagram, you have the market rate and the time. And from this paragraph, you bring in this information and this information. So you bring in your payment and you bring in your OSB, and we're looking for a new PV. So we bring in the calculator now and clear. So convert J2 to 7 effective. That's step 3. J12 is what we want. Good. J12 is done. N is 36. This is done. PV is what we're looking for. Payment is 2680. And FV is 378. Let's put 378. 543.28. With a negative. FV is money owing. Okay, 378, 543.28. Okay, that's your FV. And PV, 394. Okay, so that's your market value of the loan. And the market value of the offer will be 394 plus whatever down payment, so 454. Thank you. This is Chapter 16, Part 1, Vendor Takeback Questions with no term or with a term. With no term, FV is 0. Find the payment, take the payment, put that payment, and find new PV. When there is a term, find the payment and the OSB with the contract. Then take the new rate, market rate, and use payment and your OSB as your FV. Done.